So I'm a registered dietitian. My name's Lisa Cooperman. I'm a registered dietitian. I have a bachelor's of science in nutrition. I have a clinical internship in nutrition, which means I went to a graduate level program and fulfilled a certain amount of hours, took a national exam, and maintained my national license by doing continuing ed credits every year, such as a doctor or a nurse or a physician or a pharmacy person, whatnot. Hi, welcome. So a registered dietitian is someone who has the credentialing and holds the national license. I also have my Department of Public Health license through the state, and I carry malpractice insurance as well. If you are a nutritionist, you don't necessarily have any sort of that educational background. It's just a title that you can give yourself if you feel comfortable enough to put your name out there. So, hi, welcome. I have dairy-free hot chocolate and top 10 free allergy-free cookies if you're interested. Absolutely. So this is a great crowd for a Saturday afternoon. I'm so excited. Do you want her to sit with you? Is that what you're trying to get at?
I'm trying to get her to come up here, but she's too shy.
I don't ask any questions of my audience. More of an awareness type of thing. So, Kathy, does that answer your question?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Okay. And also, as a registered dietitian, I can become an insurance provider. So I can work with insurance companies for reimbursement and be on their list of providers. Someone who is a standard nutritionist cannot do that. Right. So.
Where do you work out of?
I work out of here. I work out of Simsbury. I do private homes and telehealth. So, yeah, absolutely. I love food allergy, but I help all medical conditions. So my background is, so I got my degree in '97, which makes me 29 years old right now, wink, wink. I have backgrounds in hospital. I worked at a Harvard healthcare facility, hospital in Boston. I've worked at a neighborhood health clinic in Boston. I ran a nutrition wellness program out of a fitness club in Boston. And then we moved to Connecticut, and I opened up my own practice and took a part-time job working with group homes for developmentally disabled adults, which now I've been doing for 20 plus years. And I love that population. I also love being a private practitioner because I dabble in a lot of different things. So one of the things I've recently discovered I love is cooking classes. I have been on the Simsbury Public TV as a cooking instructor, and I started a cooking class called The Healthy Fork, and I just recorded my 7th episode. So if you have internet access, you can look up The Healthy Fork on Simsbury Public TV, and I have some unique recipes and lots of fun going on there. I also like to give back to my community. So this month I'll be working once a month. I'll be working at the ABC House, which is the Better Chance House here in town. And I'll be doing cooking classes with the gentleman there, the younger gentleman there, because I feel everyone needs some skills before they get back into the real world and they are on their own. And then they can impress their girlfriends later on. So when I met my husband, he was trained already, which was part of the deal. So I feel like giving back a little bit. So it's super fun that way. And for those who didn't get an opportunity, there's hot cocoa here. It's dairy free. It's a coconut-based product. And there's top 10 allergen free cookies. Has anyone tried the cookies? Are they okay?
Very good.
They're decent, right? Not what you would think for an allergy-free cookie. So before I get started, does anyone have any food allergy type questions? Does anyone in the audience have a food allergy? Okay. Okay, about half. Good. Good. So again, my name's Lisa Cooperman. I have an RDN and my master's in nutrition science. I'm gonna get started. So what led me to this path of food allergy is about 6 years ago, I took a position at a sleepaway camp for food allergies. And I'm like, this just can't be a real job. This is too good to be true. Who wouldn't want to work at a sleepaway camp as a 40-year-old plus woman and hang out with like kids? And it turned out, so I show up at this camp knowing just a little bit about food allergies. And what I learned was leaps and bounds of information. Not only did I learn the clinical pieces of food allergy, so what we would open up a book and learn, but I also learned the social aspect and how food allergy affects individuals. So as you can see, what made headlines the year before I took the position wasn't even on my radar. And I remember looking back at this and thinking, that's something awful. That is awful. So this little guy, his name's Elijah, he had gone to the daycare that he had always goes to, and whether it was a new staff member or someone who just wasn't paying attention to his guidelines, fed him a grilled cheese sandwich for lunch. He had a significant dairy allergy. He didn't make it to the hospital. So this became a very big Elijah movement. There's a lot of law now that is called the Elijah Law that says all daycare and schools need to have education for staff for food allergy awareness. So this law came into a new legislation. It's called the Elijah Law. It mandates that the Department of Public Health in a specific state, it was recently passed in California, and I know there's at least 2 more states where it's sort of on the horizon, and I'm trying to get it here in Connecticut as well to make sure that every daycare is mandated that has policies in place to prevent anaphylaxis. So we'll talk, that's a big word, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But does anyone have questions, or has anyone experienced any sort of situation such as this? Or has anyone heard of anything that has made the news regarding food allergy? No, nothing specific? Okay. Just you wait. There'll be more. So the purpose of today is to define and identify what food allergies are, what the difference is between a food allergy and a food intolerance. So there's 2 different things. And just to kind of give you an overall sense of how food allergy affects that individual that has the diagnosis. And as some of you are diagnosed, it'll hit home a little bit. And then to make sure that we know what a safe environment for those individuals look like. So the food allergy epidemic is tremendous. And why this has happened, why there's been such an increase in food allergy, there are theories, but there are no conclusive answers. There are 32 million people that have food allergies just in this country alone. And you can see the statistics. 1 out of every 10 adults has a food allergy. So we're in a room of 15, and how many of us have food allergies? 4, 5? So you can see the statistics really been growing over the last decade or so. More than half of adults that are diagnosed have had a severe reaction. And more than 40% of children with food allergies have experienced a severe reaction. There has been a 377% increase in the number of food allergies between the years of 2007 to 2016. And this slide is from 2016, so it's 8 years old. Can you imagine if they were to do the study today and how that number would have changed? It would be much more. So it's kind of crazy. What are food allergies? So the difference between a food allergy is something that happens internally to us. And a food intolerance is something that sort of happens to your tummy area. So think of, are we familiar with that? Your digestive system is sort of a tube within a tube. So when you eat something, we're all kind of connected by that tube in our body. An intolerance affects that particular tube. So anything along that pathway, so whether it's your esophagus or your stomach or whatnot, can be affected by an intolerance. Whereas a food allergy is more of a systemic reaction. It can be harmless to a little bit of a mouth itch, or it can be fatal as in terms of anaphylaxis, because it can cause hives, it can cause swelling, and a whole host of other things that we'll get to on our next slide. So an intolerance is a non-anaphylactic reaction that's pretty consistent in so say it's lactose intolerant. You know that every time you're gonna have milk, you're gonna have some tummy trouble. Your stomach's not gonna be a very happy camper. Whereas if you have a milk protein allergy, sometimes you will react with hives. Sometimes you can react with wheezing. Sometimes you can have a GI disruption. It can change how you react to your food allergy. So just something to be aware of. And it's not always consistent. So, and I can speak on my behalf because do you have a question?
Oh, no, I just want to, out of respect, I'm taking notes on my phone.
Oh.
It drives me crazy when people have their cell phone out. So.
Well, that's so sweet. Thank you. Honored. Thank you. So my personal experience is I developed a food allergy 6 years ago and had absolutely no idea what it was. So I love fresh pineapple. And had an opportunity one morning at camp, believe it or not, to eat a tremendous amount of fresh pineapple. Because if you know how it is when you have fresh fruit, what happens if you don't eat it? It goes bad. So I'm like, oh, no one's eating the pineapple. I'm gonna eat the pineapple. So I eat the pineapple, and 30 minutes later, I'm driving to go pick up an errand, and my mouth is becoming itchy, and all of a sudden it just goes numb. And I was pulling my car over. I was starting to get nervous, and then I started feeling a little wheezy. I called the camp and I spoke to the nurse, and she's like, just calm down, just stay on the side of the road, make sure you can catch your breath. And eventually it passed, but who knows what happens next time you eat that much pineapple, what would happen? And I have found sequentially, now that I eat a little bit of pineapple, I'll get that type of reaction that's severe. And it's kind of crazy to think I used to be able to eat pineapple no problem. And now all of a sudden out of nowhere. So it was a sad day because I like pineapple.
Do you carry an EpiPen now?
I do not.
You need to.
I should, but I am one of avoidance. So, and I also have an allergy to bee sting too. So, the top 9 food allergies are as follows. So, we're probably somewhat familiar with these top 9, but specifically I wanted to bring your attention to the top left little lobster guy. He's a crustacean shellfish. Does anyone know the alternative shellfish category? It's something called mollusk. Mollusks are like the clams and that type of shell, whereas the crustaceans are the ones that crawl around. So just keep that in your head. Eggs are a big one. Dairy is a big one, specifically milk, cow milk. Peanuts, we all know peanuts. Sesame has just been indicted as the 9th allergen. Fish, specifically fin fish, and soybeans, tree nuts, wheat. Not gluten, but wheat. So gluten's something completely different. Other food allergies can include, and I have seen all of these: corn, peas, banana, garlic, onion, aramis, watermelon, mango, quinoa, gelatin, cumin, sunflower, poultry, flax, avocado, beef, and cinnamon. And there's probably more. There's more, I'm sure. When I was at the camp working with the kids, we had some kids that had 15 to 20 allergens. So each meal needed to be modified to meet their specific requirements. So it was some real basic food at occasion. Yes?
I have a question. As far as like the fish allergies, because I do tend to have fish allergies, but it's like hit or miss.
Okay.
Could any of it have to do with like the mercury or anything like that, or no?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yes. Your question has to do with
Yeah, the fish allergies.
whether fish allergy has a mercury component or not.
That would lead to an allergy.
That would the mercury in the fish lead to an allergy?
I have a hit or miss. Sometimes I'm allergic and sometimes I'm not, and I'm like, why is that?
I think your hit or miss fish allergy has to do with a specific type of fish. Are you eating the same fish? Like, is it every time you have salmon, sometimes you react and sometimes you don't?
No, it tends to be more specific to like the shell,
The shellfish.
the shrimp, but sometimes I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe it's how it's prepared.
maybe. Sometimes crab cakes I am, and sometimes I'm not. So it depends on whatever they have in there.
Maybe it's an alternative. So maybe sometimes if you're allergic to a crab cake, occasionally maybe there's an additional ingredient, or it's the way it's cooked. Yes.
I do find that the source of shrimp, for example, whether it's in Vietnam, whether it comes from Chile, whether it comes from the U.S.,
That's a
they're
good-
allowed to throw a lot of trash at them. They're all farm raised.
I don't like farm raised either.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, there are very few wild shrimp
Right,
anywhere.
exactly, you're right.
Right.
But that, I mean,
So-
it's very little regulation, particularly in Asia, on farming fish.
So farming fish in Asia has very little regulation, and then the additional chemical component of said shrimp, based on where it's from, could vary and could be a trigger for you.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense.
Well,
Definitely.
because I write down, where did I get it? Where did it come from? And if I didn't react, then, okay, that's okay.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, I love shrimp, so it's like, do I really want to risk it?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. It depends on how bad your shrimp reaction is too. So if it's something where it's just like a mild itch,
It's all rash all over.
yeah, you don't want to take that chance.
I was thinking it also depends on if you're having fish with, are you having it with a roll? Are you having it on with like other things? Like
Right.
If you're having it, maybe you have a bread intolerance,
A wheat intolerant. Right.
But you're like focusing so much on the fish that you're missing the other things you could be.
Right. It could be flax, like if you were having bread with flax in it, or if you were having something with sunflower in it. So you don't necessarily, you need to kind of look at the bigger picture and take a step back as well. So definitely. So great. Thank you so much for your questions. Our food allergy signs and symptoms can vary person to person and can vary from reaction to reaction. So just as an example, most signs and symptoms will include the eczema, the dry mouth, the swelling of your face, the swelling of your tongue, swollen lips, nauseousness or vomiting, abdominal pain, trouble breathing, dizziness, diarrhea. So these are the top 10 most common signs and symptoms, and different people will look different with the sign or symptom. So it's like, if I was to wear this sweater, it looks this way on me, but if somebody else is a different size and shape, like, the sweater's going to look different on them. So it's sort of the same kind of concept between what a sign and symptom is. So it's going to look a little different. So I've seen reactions on kids where their face is swollen, their tongue is swollen. A swollen tongue looks different on different people. Hives, some people get hives on their face, some people get hives on their extremities. So it's always something a little bit different, and it's something to really be aware of.
I'm just curious,
Yes.
Of the 10, what is the source material for this?
The source material. I pulled it off of a website that I could get you the reference. Definitely. It's probably fact, like the food allergy, it's fact.org, or it will be the foodallergy.org FARE, F-A-R-E. Those are my two top resources. I have a list of resources at the end as well. Yep. Anaphylaxis is a significantly severe, potentially life-threatening allergic reaction. It's hard to identify in kids. Well, kids can be very wiggly, and when they're having a reaction, they can be very upset and very emotional and very just really hard to pin down. So symptoms usually include trouble breathing, itchiness, vomiting, swollen lips. Basically, if there's two systems involved, that's going to be the general rule of anaphylaxis. So if you're starting to wheeze and hives are coming out at the same time, then that is not called a 911. That is, do not hesitate, do not wait, react. Provide care. So just another slide to show that there are so many different ways like this can look on someone. So your mouth can be swollen, you can get a tingling in your mouth. Your lungs, you can have some wheezing, you can have shortness of breath. Your skin, it can become itchy, you can see hives, you can see a rash, you can see like patchy, like red patches will show up on people. Your brain, sometimes you got this fog. Someone was describing a fog before when they eat certain food. So that happens. Your heart, you'll get either palpitations or you can feel dizzy. You can get some stomach cramping, you can get some vomiting, some diarrhea. So pinpointing all those different things on a kid is really hard, because if they're upset and they're crying and they kind of have this impending doom of something's wrong, that's technically symptom number one. The impending doom, like something bad's happening to me. I really can't control what I am feeling. If something like, and then you start to see a swollen tongue or hives. So I had a situation at camp where the dairy-free kid was accidentally given regular shredded cheese, and he was given it to it. He had a little cup of the cheese to sprinkle on his food. He had one shred. You know how small a shred is of the cheese, like in the package? One shred. And within a minute, he felt impending doom, to the point where he got up. Fortunately, he was a teen. Got up, started walking to the nurse. Didn't say anything to his counselor. Didn't say anything to anyone else. Just got up and walked out. And by the time he took the 3-minute walk across camp, his whole face was swollen. And we were calling 911, we were calling, so I was running back and forth between the kitchen, what was he served, how come it wasn't checked off, to back to the nurse, how come, how is he doing? Are we calling 911? When are they coming? So it was a lot of frenzy back, and it was crazy. So just to, it can really happen in a matter of seconds. So, and as I was saying earlier, that food allergies aren't just about how we react to the food. There's a little bit more to it. There's also the social impact of food. What was nice about this camp is that the entire camp was peanut, tree nut, shellfish, sesame free. So if you had one of those top 4 allergies, you could walk into the camp and not worry about a thing. We guaranteed that the entire camp was those 4 free. Anything else, you came to a special window and you had special silverware, plates, etc., etc. But you were 1/3 of the camp came to the window. So you were not an isolated person. When you are in a bigger group, say at school or at a family party or a social gathering, there may be a tendency for you to not eat, to avoid food, to be apart from other people who are eating food. Studies show, and this comes from the website, the kidswithfoodallergy.org, that 9 out of 10 families will avoid certain restaurants because they are not vetted for food allergy. 8 out of 10 will change their family plans. 5 out of 10 will skip school functions. So no scout meeting, no ice cream social, so think of all the things that the kids are missing out on. And then comes the airline travel. So there's a big push whether they declare peanut allergy on planes or whether there's peanuts served on planes. There's a lot of back and forth now. Has anyone experienced any social impact for food allergy or someone with a food allergy that there's been an accommodation made?
Schools have like the peanut-free tables or something for kids in cafeteria. I know like my kids are older now, but that they didn't want to sit at those tables.
So I know the pediatrician that runs, she's one of the head people at FAIR, the Food Allergy Research Association. Her kid is that kid that sat at the peanut table.
Yeah.
And he turned it around. Because at the age of 9, he really was fearless. And he invited all of his friends to come sit at that peanut-free table as long as they didn't have peanut in his food. And she got a call from the principal saying that they needed to tone it down at the table because the table was just so crazy. So instead of being so isolated, he turned it around to a positive experience. So, yes.
So my daughter early on had a tree nut allergy, but not peanuts.
Okay.
And that became very confusing at the school. Like, she can eat peanut butter, but she can't eat tree nuts.
Right.
So that was, yeah.
There needed to be some education in place in the nursing office, in the school support staff, and in the cafeteria with the food service workers. So that's one of my personal goals with my company, is to go into schools and make sure they have that proper education. So this might be hard to read, but I thought this was really important. The Americans with Disability Act considers food allergy and celiac disease qualifies as a disability. So a person cannot be discriminated against because of their food allergy. They cannot be denied employment. They can't really be asked that question, do you have a food allergy, when you go for a job interview. Employers, schools, and other programs that receive federal funding, so any sort of federally funded program, needs to have accommodations in place. So say you go to a party that's put on by the town, they need to have accommodations in place for food allergy. And then, despite being protected by the Americans with Disability Act, food allergies and celiac disease are not covered under Social Security benefits. So even though there is some benefit on with that national level, it doesn't carry through all said locations. food allergy labeling. Food allergy labeling. Has anyone looked at a package and tried to figure out the food allergies that are present on the packaging? Is it something that's easy to do or something that's difficult to do?
It's better than it used to be.
It's better than it used to be, yep. So because there's a law called FALCA, which is the Food Allergy Labeling and Consumer Protection Act. This is a federal law that indicates that a product needs to contains an allergen, it needs to have in bold lettering on the labeling what the allergen is, in plain English. It can't say like casein without saying milk. So casein's the protein in the milk. So that is imperative. The precautionary labeling, anyone familiar with that, what that may be? That is when food companies, they choose to include a may contain statement. Their products are warning you, the consumer, that there's a potential for cross-contamination. My favorite example is what happened to bread when they passed the sesame restriction? When they declared sesame as the 9th allergen, what did most big bread companies do?
You just put may contain sesame or may be in touch with. There are so many things. It is hard when you are allergic because the easy way out, avoid liability,
Yeah.
is to put that this, piece of sushi may have touched wheat, eggs, tree
Yeah.
nuts, peanuts. So now you're like, okay.
What do you eat? And how safe do you feel with the may contain statement? So this precautionary labeling is, you are to use your best judgment.
Yeah.
And it is a very scary label. It is super scary because there is no regulation. The FDA does not mandate that type of labeling. So they really could have a may contain without putting it on the label, without even putting it on the package. There was an issue where we couldn't find bread. I couldn't find bread that was appropriate for camp, that was sesame free. And I can't tell you how many bread distributors and manufacturers I called. And they said, well, we can't guarantee that we don't have sesame because we don't have a separate production line in a separate facility. They're like, it's too expensive to build just a specific location to produce bread that has no sesame in it. So we are going to cover our butts and say, may include sesame. Or we're gonna, even if it wasn't there before, we're gonna put it in. So now we can say, contains sesame, and we don't have to guarantee that it's a clean product line. So the companies were adding sesame to their products on purpose. So they didn't have to have that allergy-free, no sesame label. It blew me away. I was so mad. So mad. So there is something called the rule of 3. Is anyone familiar with what that could be? That's for us as a consumer with an allergen. So if you're somebody with an allergen, there's a practice called the rule of 3. It's when you are in the store, the first place you read the label to check for an allergen. When you get home, the second time you read that label is when you're putting it away. And then the third time you're reading the label, to guarantee your safety, is when you're about to prepare the food. That's the rule of 3. So why is this important? Because reading food labels can help you avoid that contaminant that could make you very, very sick. And I don't know about you, but when I'm food shopping, I don't always have my 100% attention radar on. You know, Mary Smith is coming down the aisle. Oh, I haven't seen you in forever, Mary Smith. Let me just throw something in my cart. Or I'm making dinner and You know, someone's got homework, or there's a dog barking, or 3 dogs barking, or you know, the phone's ringing, this is happening, that's happening. Our lives are crazy. So by following that rule of 3, you're giving yourself additional opportunity to be safe and to put that into good practice. So despite the important first step of protecting consumers with food allergies, this FALCA has left unregulated use of that precautionary statement. That it still drives me nuts. So that's why I had to make another slide. It just drives me that crazy. So it uses it as a low-cost shield to liability. And again, the FDA does not mandate. And again, so not only the whole food shopping, think about when you go out to a restaurant. What if the wait staff hasn't been trained? How are you supposed to know if you're safe? What type of chances are you going to take? What if it's your child? So it gets me right here. So managing food allergies means you have to read all of your labels very carefully, especially one at a time, because even if it's the same food, reading the same product, you may think the label hasn't changed. Wrong. Labels change from product to product, from line to line, from store to store. So here's my favorite, here's an example. So this is a container of almond milk. You got them side by side, right? You can see the ingredients pretty much line up. You've got almond milk, filtered water, almonds, sugar, cocoa, sea salt, locust bean gum, natural flavors, sunflower lecithin, gelatin gum. And that's identical. The vitamins and minerals are identical. But now look at the allergen statement. This one says, contains almond produced in a facility that also processes other tree nuts and soy. And this one says, contains almond. Well, it's almond milk, yes, so true. Produced in a facility that also processes coconut. Where's the tree nut and soy? Why are they different? What if you can have coconut? What if you can't have soy and you pick this one up? How comfortable are you with having that difference? Isn't that insane? So this is just a second slide highlighting how different that the 2 side-by-side labels can be. So, and then what year was this? This was a year ago. This was a dancer in New York City, traveled to Connecticut, happened to be at Stu Leonard's, purchased these cookies, which I don't know if you shop at Stu Leonard's, but they have a habit of taking someone else's product, putting it in their container, and putting their label on it, and not updating the ingredient list. So there was no warning on that list. So she had a peanut allergy, and guess what the cookies had? Undeclared peanut. So there is a huge lawsuit that had happened, and this beautiful 20-something-year-old woman passed away. It was so horrible. All right, who's ready for a quiz? That's why I said pay attention to her something. So the rule of 3, reading ingredient labels at the store, when unloading your groceries, and before serving the food, when cooking the food, or after eating the food. What's the answer?
2.
Cooking it.
When cooking the food. Yes. So when you still can see the label, because when you're serving it, you don't see the label. And after you ate it, the label's already in the garbage. So does the label have to, in the contain statement, Did I not? Oh, I should have changed this. I remember I didn't like how I wrote this one. So the labels in the contain statement, do they need to end with the major allergens bolded? So in that may contains,
3, no.
the contain statement is one of two options. Yep. So, and again, not all packaged foods, that's something else to discuss. Not all packaged foods have the specific labeling that you would suspect on it. So if it's something that's pre-made in the store, like a grab-and-go type of meal, the labeling may not be exactly what the allergen content is clear. Which is not considered a major food allergen under FALCA? Seaweed. I figured I'd give you an easy one. Oh, wait. Go back. What type of shellfish is considered a major allergen? All forms of shellfish, crustacean, or mollusk? Crustacean.
I know people who have oyster allergies that you wouldn't want to touch.
I know people who have the mollusk, and they go out and they go, well, I have a shellfish allergy, but I want shrimp. And the waiter goes, I can't serve you shrimp. She goes, I'll sign something. I want my shrimp. And she goes, I just have a mollusk allergy. And the waiter is completely dumbfounded. But it's true. She had to sign something and had to have a talk with the chef about getting what she wanted. Does FALCA apply to fresh meat, fresh fruit, and veggies? Yes? Only if it's imported, or no?
No.
No. Where are you going to put a label on a piece of cabbage or an apple? Nope. So thank you for your attention. I will answer any questions or discuss any situation you wish. And then here are my references. So, yes.
So the sesame seed allergen, which is relatively new, how did that come about?
How did the sesame allergen come across? Well, what they do is they look at what the top 10 allergens are in all other national countries. And sesame is pretty much on everyone else's list. And at the time, we only had 8. So they decided to make it 9. And there's been enough documentation in the US that sesame qualified.
And so why is that? Like, what is it with the sesame? Or is that a silly question? You recently bought some to sprinkle on stuff, so I'm like, ooh. Come on over to my house.
Kiss of death. No, just kidding.
I never knew. I mean, that's not even like public knowledge, or I didn't know, so.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, what, that's sesame's number 9?
No, I don't even know if that's common among.
It's more common than you think. Yes.
What are the effects of sesame, just like as if they had a peanut?
Yes.
Exactly the same?
Yes. So your sesame allergy would pretty much act as any additional allergy. So if you were allergic to sesame, you could have very similar reactions as said if you had a peanut allergy or if you had a dairy allergy. So it could be that whole host of that list with think about that little person with all the different the cute little guy in the backpack. This guy.
Sesame person can't eat tahini, right?
Right. Tahini is sesame based.
Why it's all the Asian too, because they use that so much.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of hummus has tahini as a base.
Yes, it does.
So a lot of people will choose to make their own hummus at home and avoid the tahini that way. So yes.
So I recently learned I had an intolerance. It took me a long time to identify it. Like milk made me super tired every time I consumed it, and just super tired. And it wasn't until I had a hair scan, like they take out your hair and they read it, that I found I had a gluten intolerance.
Huh.
So what are the other ways, just besides like a hair scan, what are the other ways that you can identify like an intolerance to something? Is it through blood work? Is it
It's
the only
through
way-
blood work.
It's the only way?
That's kind of the proven test is blood work. There are a lot of other fit type tests or blood work or skin sample type tests. The most valid one though is blood work.
And do they identify, do they have like a bunch of different things, like they'll tell you like, oh, you're this and this and this, like they'll tell you all.
It's a rating scale. Like you have this amount of allergens to this particular substance.
Do you have to have consumed those things in the last month, or, you don't have to, it won't show? Like,
Or you can
if I
go
don't consume milk for like 2 months, and then I go in and have a test, will it still show that milk is in? It will, okay.
Yep, and then, or you can go for a skin prick test, which is where they put the allergen directly on your skin and they label the allergen. So, like, our daughter had allergies to egg, milk, and soy as an infant. So when we brought her to the allergist, they did her back, and it was like 20 different little pinpricks with the allergen, and they're all labeled. So they're all initialed. So you could see what swelled up and what did not.
So you went directly to the allergist? What about blood work? Any doctor?
We went to blood work afterwards, and they confirmed what we found out.
So you should any doctor and say, hey, I want to have my blood work done, and just test.
And they'll refer you to an allergist.
Okay, well, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, so in my family, we have celiac disease, my mother and my sister. So we were all tested, and I have a lower number, so I don't have celiac disease, but many people have intolerance for gluten, which doesn't mean you have celiac.
Yep, it's a newer diagnosis. It's called non-celiac gluten intolerance.
Right.
And it's really it's an intolerance to gluten, but it doesn't have the same GI issue that a celiac person does. It doesn't do the same damage on the cellular level. Celiac disease is when your GI tract is so affected by the gluten protein, that it's pretty much killing itself off as a reaction.
And you do have to specifically, in fact, I would recommend everybody to be tested for celiac disease. And you have to ask for it when you have blood work. You have to specifically ask, I want to test for celiac.
If you're suspicious, if you have issues when you have been eating gluten.
Yeah, but the thing is, I know when I eat too much gluten, I feel like crap.
That happens to a lot of people.
I didn't know that for years. And I was like, why am I always feeling so tired and tired and tired? And I wasn't having bread every day. And so it took me a very long time. And it wasn't until we had that hair scan that she was like, you're gluten intolerant. And I was like, wait, what? So now I'm like very like getting my blood work done. But I think you could be having, not these problems, these are for the, not those things, but you can have intolerance to something and be feeling off and yucky
Yes.
and not know.
And yep,
Maybe blood work would just be good to have. Just to
absolutely.
Because you can see how if the number's high, then you have more of a higher, you're less tolerant. And because the number's my mother, it's off the chart, celiac. Mine's very low, so I'm pretty tolerant of gluten. But that could also change over time as well. And who knows why, but so it is important, I think, to get tested at least once.
Definitely. Any more questions? Yes.
It's not a question, but just to offer to folks, if you are getting tested for allergies on the skin test, so I went and they do, like, somebody comes in, puts 15 little pricks, they come back 20 minutes later and say, oh, it's no problem. I went home, and 2 hours later, then I got, 3 big welts, looked like I had a bee sting. So make sure they give you the time. Some of us take longer to
You have a
react.
delayed reaction.
And, you
Yep.
walk out and they put on my chart, like I'm not.
Oh, you're free. You're
allergic to
good.
anything.
Yep.
Yeah, well, then I sent
You're
them
not.
a picture and suddenly I'm allergic to
To
tree
X, Y,
nuts.
and Z. Yeah.
So,
That should be a long time.
Yep.
It was after I ate the bread, but it was like hours later after I'd had another meal. Anyway, it took me a long time to figure it out.
Well, I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
I'm glad they did. You're,
I was just gonna ask her, where did you get the hair scan?
Oh, this is in Arizona. One of my friends just do hair scans. But I know there's people here that do hair scans. If you type in hair scans, it was very interesting. I was like, okay, this is kind of hippie-ish, whatever. You know, but it's my friend who I know and trust, and she's like, no, this is you're reading the data that your hair stores, and so I learned a lot about my body I didn't know before.
very cool. Very cool. Very cool. So don't dispute all these new tests that are coming out.
Oh, and one more thing.
Yes.
I also did get blood work right after that and found that, so I deal with depression, and I found that the guy that also my friend who I trust, was like, oh, you have like, you're off the chart, or like super low in vitamin D, you're super low in testosterone, you're super low in this, so no wonder you're tired, no wonder you're depressed, no wonder, it was my body, I'm just off, and
Yeah.
this thing, so I think just knowing what you're, like doing blood work and knowing what your body needs and doesn't like,
Yeah.
I think that can make a difference in how you feel.
Definitely. Definitely.
You say your gut is very, with mental health and all that, like the two are very closely related.
Definitely. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Yes, Diane.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to tell you, like, I became sensitive to gluten, and I don't need to have a test to tell me that, I can just tell from what I eat.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed is if I have pasta or bread from Italy or organic, I don't have a problem with it.
Right.
So I think it's just all the chemicals. that-
Yeah, it's all the extra byproducts and stuff.
Yeah. And there is a pill I take before I do have it, if I go out to a party or something.
Okay.
It's like an enzyme.
So it helps to break down.
Yeah, kind of like a lactose pill.
Yeah, like a lactate, yeah.
So it's like gluten go. So there is
Oh.
something if anyone has like, they're not like definitely.
Well, I'm glad that works for you.
Something that helps.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm here afterwards if you guys have further questions. Thank you. Thank you.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town.
bringing us together through local programming,
Education.
and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community.
Ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings.
And celebrating milestones.
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SEM receives less revenue.
Even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
Continues to educate our youth.
And keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SEM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
For generations to come.
Visit our website
Or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
Counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media.
where your town
Your schools and
And your government
come together.